Loops, along with if statements, are one of the fundamental ways of affecting the flow of your code. Modern computer programs simply wouldn't be possible without loops. And it's pretty easy to imagine where they might be used. For example, when your Gmail is showing you all of your emails, that's a loop because it's looping through all of the emails that it finds in the database and then displaying them to you. So loops are definitely something you're going to need to get to grips with. And I'm going to start by showing you the for loop. So we start off with our for loop, exactly as in JavaScript. And then, if you remember in JavaScript, we start off by creating our counter variable, which usually we call something like I, and setting it equal to its initial value. So we do exactly the same in PHP. We set I is equal to 0. Then, as in JavaScript, we set the conditions for the for loop to continue. So we might want to keep going as long as I is less than 10, for example. And then once we've got the initial condition and the condition for the loop to be true, we set the rule for what happens to I each time it goes around the loop. And the usual one, which hopefully you remember, is I++, which is another way of saying increment I by 1 or increase I by 1 each time. So that's how we define our loop. And then I'm just going to display each item in the loop separated by a line break. All right, so very quick question for you. Can you tell me what values will actually be displayed on the page when I run that code? Did you get it? Let's take a look. So starting with 0, of course, and then increasing by 1 each time, and we don't get the 10. That was maybe the slightly trick part of the question, because this keeps going as long as it's less than 10. If we wanted to include 10, then we would have to change that to less than or equal to. All right, another quick challenge. Can you change this so that we get all the even numbers from 2 to 30 inclusive? So all the even numbers from 2 to 30 inclusive. Go for it. Did you get it? We just need to start at 2, keep going as long as I is less than or equal to 30, and then increase I by 2 every time. And the command for that is that. So I equals I plus 2. And that should give us 2, 4, 6, 8 all the way up to 30. Just to change everything around a little bit, can you do a countdown from 10 to 0? So all the way down from 10 to 0. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Go for it. Okay. Let's hope you got there. So we want to start at 10. We want to keep going as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. And then we want to decrease 1 by I every time. And we can actually do that using I minus minus. All right, let's have a look. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Great. Okay, so one of the most useful uses of for loops is looping through arrays. And that's the couple of examples that I gave you were looping through tweets or emails. They would likely be stored as arrays on the server which was providing them to you. And we can use for loops to do that. So let's set up our good old family array. Can't go wrong. Rob, Kirsten, Tommy, and Ralphie. And in fact, I'll set this as a little challenge. So can you set up a for loop just like this, which displays each of the values of family in turn? Go for it. All right, hope you managed that. You should have done something like creating I and setting it equal to 0 initially. And we want to keep going as long as I is less than, so this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So we want to keep going as long as I is less than 4. Or alternatively, we could use size of and family. Bonus points if you did it that way, because that's more flexible, because it allows us to add people to the family or indeed remove them, and this code will still work. So well done if you did that. And then we just increment I each time. And then to display them, we use family, and then we want the ith one each time. And we'll have a line break in them as well. There we go. So that's how to do it with a for loop, but there's a really nice alternative method, which is actually my favorite type of loop in PHP, and that is the for each loop, which basically builds this in so you don't have to write out all those fiddly settings every time. And the for each loop works like this. So we take our array, family, and we want to loop through it as, and then we specify the variables that we want to contain, the key or the index, and then this arrow symbol again, equals and greater than, and value. So what this will do is it will loop through all of the items in the family array, and we can do something with them involving their key and their value. So if I just wanted to display them, for example, then I could say array item and then key is, and then value, and that will loop through all of them and give us both the key or the index and the value. Oh, let's pop a line break in there. There we go. So array item 0 is Rob, array item 1 is Kirsten, etc. And that's not only a great way to display the items in an array, you can also use it to amend them or change them in some way. So if I wanted to pop the surname onto each of these, in fact, see if you can work out how to do that. Can you add Percival to the end of each of these names in one line within this for each loop? Go for it. Okay, so all it is we'd find family and key, and this will get the one that we're working with at the moment, and we want to set that equal to value, and then we append to that Percival. And that's it. So that will get the value as it was and append Percival to it, and then save that to the array itself. Let's have a look. Great. So you notice it hasn't appended it up here because this value was what we had before, but it has appended it when we loop through the second time, just like that. Great. So we'll be using for each loops a lot as we go through arrays, and especially when working with series of items in databases, for example. But there is a third type of loop that I want to show you, which again is particularly useful when it comes to databases, and that is the while loop.